Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit. Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
She lost her entire family to a drunk driver. Coming up, meet the woman helping to push through 2 new bills in Congress to hope that it doesn't happen to another family.
Nothing was left for them, and they were so young.
Her family killed, hit by a drunk driver. Her pain and grief taking her all the way to Washington, D.C.
Their crash changed everything. I couldn't walk away from that.
Couldn't walk away from a fight in memory of the ones she loved.
Sometimes we don't choose our battles, they choose us.
How she hopes to stop drunk drivers from devastating another family.
Her family was killed by a drunk driver.
You know, it's one thing when you lose a spouse or a child or a parent. There's somebody to carry on that legacy, but nothing was left for them, and they were so young.
Now she's working for real change to keep others from being killed by someone driving under the influence. The Abbas family of 5 was killed by a drunk driver more than 2 years ago.
Now, the sister is working with Congress to get new legislation passed. Tonight, she's sitting down with our Grant Herms to explain why this new bill, spurred by the loss of her family, may just be the key to saving thousands of lives.
How often are you here?
Every day.
On a park bench in memory of her family, Raina Abbas Taylor comes to reflect and connect.
My memories of them are in this neighborhood. You know, the walks we took, hanging out at the park with the kids. This is where I feel them more than anywhere else.
The park where she sits now, just steps from their home.
Rima and I were very close. She was my best friend. My brother-in-law found us the house here in their neighborhood because they wanted to make sure we were living really close to one another.
In 2019, Raina's sister Rima, brother-in-law Isam, and her nieces and nephew, 14-year-old Ali, 13-year-old Isabel, and 7-year-old Giselle, were killed when they were hit by a drunk driver on a Kentucky highway as they were driving home to Northville.
It's one thing when you lose a spouse or a child or a parent. There's somebody to carry on that legacy, but nothing was left for them, and they were so young. I mean, Rima was 38 and Isam was 42, and the kids didn't even get a shot at a legacy. And I fully believe now that this is part of providing for them a legacy that they were robbed of.
In 2019, Raina and her husband Tom were asked to fly to Washington, D.C. for the launch of a new bill that would require drunk driving detection to be mandatory in new vehicles. That bill never passed, but Raina says she'll never forget the words from one advocate that day, words that would galvanize her as an advocate herself.
It is because of your family that we're going to end drunk driving in the U.S. And I couldn't walk away from that.
This time, Taylor is helping the push behind a pair of new bills, known as the RIDE Act in the Senate and the HALT Act in the House. The charge being led by Michigan Representative Debbie Dingell.
There have been too many deaths, too many senseless deaths.
The bills would mandate ways to detect drunk drivers in new cars, things that some automakers are already doing, like monitoring lane drifting or speed changes. Still others, like systems that can detect alcohol in a driver's breath or use infrared light on the steering wheel to gauge alcohol levels through a driver's skin. The bills are also backed and written with bipartisan support, something that's in short supply in Washington lately.
I don't think that bipartisan bills are impossible. I don't look at life that way. When I'm trying to get something done, I try to bring everybody to the table.
And that support is cause for hope, when for so long and for so many, there wasn't.
I think most people, ending drunk driving seems like a task that might be so big it can't be tackled.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when people say that?
It is so much easier than people think. Bottom line, The technology's available. What are we waiting for?
The CEO for the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which represents the big three and about 35 other major automakers and manufacturers, said that they are committed to working with stakeholders to end drunk driving, but stop short of saying that they support this legislation. Grant Herms, Local 4.
Reyna is testifying in front of Congress tomorrow, hoping to get more support for the legislation. It's the first big hurdle these bills will have to clear on the road to becoming law.